Yo, what's up guys, and welcome to a brand new video. Today a very important one, because today is gonna be all about all the predicted lineups for the Euros. So Salah and I have done a lot of research the last couple of days, weeks even. We've already been going through this for a long time, and now it's time for the video. But one note, make sure to do your own research as well, because in the end these are predicted lineups that we do. We don't know everything 100% for sure. Anyway, without talking too much, make sure to like and subscribe on our channel if you haven't yet. And guys, of course, we make this video also partly for Sorare. So if you don't know what Sorare is, it's a fantasy football game. Now there's actually a free-to-play mode where you can win match tickets, signed mystery jerseys. You can actually meet Zinedine Zidane. So if you are interested in Sorare, make sure to use our link in the description. Alright, let's go to Group A. So to start off with the home country, Germany. It's a pretty much nil team, to be honest. A lot of doubts about Neuer and Ter Stegen, guys. We are pretty sure that Neuer is going to be starting this Euros. Then the center-back position could be some rotation, especially between Schlotterbeck and Jonathan Tah. Although, from what we have read and from the research we've done, Jonathan Tah is more likely to start next to Rudiger. The left-back position is Mittelstadt, with a slight risk of David Raum maybe starting there. And then, I mean, you have three midfielders, Andrich, Kroos and Gundogan, who are pretty much nailed. Andrich also did a lot of things in the pre-friendlies and the qualifications. He might get rotated a little bit, but we're not expecting it much. And then the front three is probably going to be Musiala with Havertz and Wirtz. A lot of people were thinking Sané, but Sané is probably not going to start over Wirtz. He's definitely going to start from the bench. And besides that, on the bench you also have Müller and Pascal Gross, who definitely could have an impact on this Euros. And of course Mr. Füllkrug. But we think that he will probably start on the bench and then maybe come on in the last 30 minutes of every game. Something like that. So that was Germany. Let's go to Scotland. So for Scotland, there are not many risks. The fullback position on the right especially had to be replaced because those are still injured. That's probably going to be Ralston. And then the rest of the back line is pretty much guaranteed to start like this. Then in the midfield, it all depends a little bit on the formation they will play. Will they play 5-4-1 or 5-3-2? Because if they play 5-3-2, McGinn is probably going to be up front with Dykes. And then with in the midfield, Gilmore, McTominay and McGregor. But if they play 5-4-1, Christie's probably going to be on the left instead of Gilmore, and McGinn is going to drop to the right. So that's the only tricky thing there, but besides that, a lot of definitely starters in there. Dykes might be rotated a little bit with Shankland, but I do think Dykes is preferred. For Hungary, there are actually quite a few options on the bench to replace others in the field, but if we look at the team right now, first of all, the goalkeeper situation, we do think Gulaxi is probably gonna be the starting goalkeeper, but there is a slight risk in there. Besides that, the backline is pretty much solid with Orban and Salai for sure. Then the middle center back will be either Lang or Dardai, I think. And then on the left wing back and the right wing back are also pretty solid with Nego and Kerkes. In the midfield we have Nagy and Staals, who also both have some replacements on the bench that could have some impact on the starting lineup there. And then forward we have Salai and Szoboszlai, and these two are pretty much the playmakers of the whole team. So we are definitely expecting that they will start. Then the forward position is going to be interesting. We have that striker position. It's either going to be Varga or Adam. So that's definitely going to be an interesting one. So then for the last team of Group A, Switzerland. And Switzerland, it's going to depend on if they're going to play 4-3-3 or 5-2-1-2. Freuler and Xhaka are definitely nailed starters, with Shaqiri of course. But then besides that, it's going to be either two center-backs and one more CDM like Zakaria, for example, in a 4-3-3. In a 5-2-1-2, it's going to be three center-backs, of course. I do think Akanji and Cher are most likely to start, and then Elvedi with that 5 back in there. Rodriguez, nil starter pretty much, and then on the right wing back, Wiedmer or Mbabu, but we do think that Wiedmer is going to be the starter there. Then the only risky thing, like the big risk in this team, is definitely the striker positions, because now we went for Okafor and Vargas, but I saw a lot of speculation and a lot of discussing about this, because Mbolo could definitely start out of nowhere, or even Amdouni. So the striker positions are definitely a tricky position. So up next, Group B, and we're gonna start with Spain. And Spain has a pretty solid team, to be honest, and the front three is something that we could not find anything different. We've done a lot of research, and every time we saw Nico Williams with Yamal and Morata. So this is most likely to be the front three in there. Then in the midfield, Pedri and Rodri are most likely to just start every game. And then you have a little rotation risk with Dani Olmo or a more defensive midfielder. For now, we went for Dani Olmo, but he could easily be replaced by Zubimendi, for example, if they play a little bit more defensively. But besides that, the midfield is pretty solid as well. Then in the back line, you only have two risks. I think Grimaldo is definitely gonna start, you know. But I saw a lot of people who actually preferred Cucurella over him, also because Spain don't play a 5-back, and Grimaldo is really good in that 5-back as a wing-back especially. So they will have to come up with a system to make that work, otherwise they might play Cucurella here and there. Then the centre-back, Laporte or Pau Torres. We do think it's going to be Laporte, but it might be a tricky one. So for Croatia, their backline is pretty much nailed. It's definitely going to be Stanisic on the right back. Slight chance of Juranovic, but then Sutalo, Gvardiol and Borna Sosa on the left. The midfield, Brozovic and Modric are guaranteed to start. Like, if that doesn't happen, you know, I don't know what's happening. Kovacic might start in a... if they play 4-3-3. If they play like a 4-2-3-1, then Kovacic might be replaced by Ivanusek. I'm always struggling with that name. But in a 4-3-3, Ivanusek can also play on a wing. But he does have a little bit of competition with Perisic. Then you got Maier as well with Kramaric up front, and Budimir definitely has a shot of playing as well, especially if they play 4-2-3-1 with Kramaric on the right, for example, and then Budimir at striker. So that might be a tricky one. One thing that's interesting as well, I saw someone say this, against Spain, the coach apparently has said already that they will probably play Gvardiol on left back, and then Sutalo and Erlich on centre backs, because they play a little bit more defensive against Spain, because it's a tough opponent, of course. So that's going to be interesting to see there, but I definitely think Croatia has a shot at beating Spain or Italy. So this group is probably one of the toughest groups in my opinion. So Italy pretty much have two options. They either play 4-3-3 or 3-4-3. Now we went for 3-4-3 because we did see a lot of people saying that this will be most likely the formation of Italy. In the defense line though, it's gonna be tricky because only Bastoni and Di Marco are pretty sure of being a starter. Besides that, it's going to be rotation between Di Lorenzo and Darmian, but also between Mancini and Darmian, and then you also have Acerbi or Buongiorno. So there's a lot of rotation in the defensive back line of Italy. For the midfield, you have Jorginho and of course Barella, who are pretty much guaranteed to start. If they do play 4-3-3 though, so with one less centre back, that would mean they need a midfielder. Then it will most likely be for Fratesi. But in this 3-4-3 lineup, Fratesi could also be playing right wing, maybe. Most likely not, but there's definitely a chance. In the attack, Chiesa is pretty much the only nailed starter. Besides that, we went for Raspadori and Scamacca. They do have a high chance of starting, but like I said, Fratesi could also be playing, but also Politano could also play on the right wing. In the attack, you have Retegui as well. So It might be a little bit tricky with the forward positions, but at least Chiesa is an old starter. So for Albania, they are gonna have a tough time, to be honest, because they are in such a difficult group and they have such a small chance of actually going through. But for the goalkeeper situation, we are thinking Berisha has like 60% of starting over Strakosha. And we would say, from the research we've done, that he is most likely gonna start. The back line is pretty much solid. There's a few backups, especially for the right back and the center back, but it's pretty much nailed to be this back line 4. Then in the midfield you have Aslani, Ramadani and Asani, who are pretty much guaranteed to play as well. The better players from the team definitely. And then Bayrami also pretty much guaranteed to play. On the left side it will either be Seferi or Uzuni. That's the one. That one is going to be tricky. But besides that, the Silakeshi from Konyaspor is actually not going to be there. So Broga is pretty much guaranteed to be the striker as well. So overall, a pretty much nil team. But of course, they have a slight chance for actually going through. So on to Group C with the start of Slovenia. And Slovenia has a team that is just not great, to be honest. And especially their bench hasn't gotten that much of quality players, which means that the starting 11 is pretty much nailed, besides the striker position, who could be either Sporar or Vipotnik, but of course Sesko is going to be a starter, especially after a season at Leipzig as well. But besides that, most of them are pretty much nailed, and there's a slight chance that there will be others playing in the starting 11. So for Denmark, they also have a pretty nailed starting 11, to be honest. In the backline, everyone is probably going to start. One thing that could happen is they could play 4-3-3 instead of 5-3-2. If that happens, it's going to be interesting to see who they actually drop. In my opinion, most likely it's going to be Andersen or Christensen. The only risk in the backline now is pretty much Ba, because Mele is either going to be playing on left wing back or right wing back, and then it's either Ba or Christiansen. If Ba is going to start, it's going to be on the right back. If Christiansen is going to start, then it's going to be on the left back, of course. The midfielders are pretty much guaranteed to start with Eriksen, Højbjerg and Norgaard. And then in the attack, Højlund is pretty much guaranteed to start. But Jonas Wind, it all depends on that formation again. If they play 4-3-3, then Jonas Wind might be replaced by one of the wingers as well. Because you do have Darami and Skov Olsen. It's all going to depend if the Denmark coach chooses to play 4-3-3 to use those wingers. Otherwise, they will probably play 5-3-2, which is preferred and most likely. Serbia is an interesting one again, because most of the players are pretty much nailed. The goalkeeper situation, we are thinking Milinkovic-Savic is going to play. Like 70% over 30% for Petrovic. Then the backline is pretty much nailed there as well. Not many players on the bench who could replace those players as well. The midfield, Gudelje and Milinkovic are definitely going to start. But then it's going to be interesting. Are they going to play with one striker or two strikers? If they play with two strikers, it's probably going to be Vlahovic and Mitrovic. But if they play one striker, then it's pretty much guaranteed going to be Lukic on the midfield. And we, of course, have the captain, Dusan Tadic, in the team as well. So then for pretty much the favorite in this group, England. And they also have a pretty much nailed starting 11. So Group C in general has a lot of nailed starting 11s. The only risk here is pretty much the left back position. Is either going to be Trippier or Joe Gomez. We think it's going to be Trippier, especially with that little bit more experience on that left back position itself, but also on the fullback in general. Besides that, Declan Rice and Bellingham are definitely going to start, and then the other midfielder is going to be either Gallagher or Trent Alexander-Arnold probably. There might be some rotation in there. And then the front three, and mostly the important games is going to be Saka, Harry Kane and Mr. Phil Foden. Insane team from England, to be honest. Definitely the favorite in this group. And I think they should smash this Euros in general, because they have an insane squad. Also on the bench, Palmer, Madison, Watkins, players like this on the bench as well, you know. So there are a lot of possibilities in the England team to still have some rotation, but if we choose a starting 11, this is pretty much what we think. Group D, or the group of death, as we call it in the Netherlands, because there are a lot of tough opponents in this group. To start off with Poland, who, to be honest, have a pretty solid lineup here in general. Not much risk rotation. The right back and left back are pretty much guaranteed to start, but there is a slight risk of Cash maybe starting over one of them, or either being subbed pretty early for one of them. Besides that, the midfield is also pretty solid. Only risk maybe if they want to use Szymanski a little bit more attacking, then they will probably play him over Piotrowski, if I say it correctly. And then of course on top Lewandowski and Swiderski. And besides that, there's not much to be replaced. You have Buksa and Piatek as well that are probably going to be on the bench, but definitely a nilled starting 11. Besides some rotation risk from the right back, left back and midfielder. So for the Netherlands, guys, I mean, it's a tricky one. First of all, he's insane for not bringing Ian Maatsen with the selected team, but I don't know. He's going to be playing a Champions League final and he's not even in the squad somehow. Besides that, I mean, now Blind is pretty much guaranteed, especially if they play 5-back, because the Netherlands could also choose to play 4-3-3. But if we play a 5-back, Ake, Van Dijk, Matthijs de Ligt, most likely some rotation risks for Ake and de Ligt with Geertruida on the right and Mickey van der Ven on the left. But most likely this is going to be the back line, and Dumfries is definitely preferred over Frimpong in most of the cases. I would like to see Frimpong as well, to see how he could do on a tournament like this, but I do think Dumfries is going to start. Then in the midfield, Frenkie de Jong and Reinders. There's a lot of debate about the midfield, but in our opinion, that is the best midfield you could have. Frenkie de Jong with Reinders. Koopmeiners is definitely a good backup, especially after the final win with Atalanta. But Veerman and Wiever are most likely going to be backups on the bench, in our opinion. Then forwards are going to be Gakpo, Depay and Simons most likely. With backups Weghorst and Malen, who are most likely to not start. If they do play 4-3-3, then Blind is gonna probably sit on the bench, Ake on the left, and then an extra midfielder could be Koopmeiners, and as backups maybe Veerman or Wiever. Then for Austria, it's a pretty much nilled lineup as well. There's a few risky things here and there, especially for Weber, because Weber could either play left back or center back as a replacement for Lienhard Danso, but he could also play left back for Mwene. For now we left them out because those are also decent starters, but they definitely could use Weber here and there as well. Then for the midfield, I mean, Leimer is definitely going to play, Seiwald, Sabitzer as well, Baumgartner is definitely going to be playing. The only risk is Leimer actually going to be playing on the right wing, the right attacking midfielder? Because if that's the case, then Grealish is probably going to be playing centre mid as well. If Leimer plays centre mid, they might use Schmidt or Wimmer on the right wing, right attacking midfielder position. And then at striker, Gregoric. Besides that, not much to note. Arnautovic is probably going to be on the bench. Does have a chance of maybe being a starter in a few games, but in that current group, I do think Gregoric is going to be preferred. So for France, I mean, definitely favorite in this group as well, and I think it's a really tough group because Austria and Poland definitely have chances. If we do look at history, France and Netherlands are definitely going to be getting out of the group, is our expectations, but Poland and Austria definitely do have a chance, especially against the Netherlands. So it is going to be an interesting one. But if we look at the French team, it's one of the favorite teams on the whole tournament, to be honest. Menya is probably going to start. He is actually back in training because he had a small injury with his finger. But he should be starting, especially if we see him already in training videos and stuff. Then the backline, Upamecano and Theo Hernandez, pretty much nilled. And then it's going to be between Konate and Saliba, who's going to start between that. And then Koundé on the right. Is Pavard going to get a role? I mean, we saw it in history that he has been important, but most likely not apart from the bench. Midfield, Rabiot and Tchouaméni are probably going to be the preferred midfielders. But you have Zer Emery and also Kamavinga, who definitely have a shot at maybe replacing them in an easier game or just in general, because they are decent players. And there's just a lot of competition on that midfield. If we look at the forward positions, Griezmann and Kylian Mbappe are two of the most important positions in the France team. Besides that, striker position is going to be either Thuram, Giroud or Kolo Muani. We are thinking Thuram with a slight chance of Giroud now, and then Kolo Muani from the bench, because we have seen that in the past as well. On the right wing position, we do think Dembele is going to be starter, especially because he was injured, so he didn't play those friendlies and stuff. But if he's actually back, we do think he's going to be preferred over Koeman. Then already on to Group E with Slovakia. Backline is pretty much guaranteed. Besides the right centre-back spot, it's either going to be Favro or Satka. The midfielders are definitely going to be Kuka, Lobotka and Duda, because there's not much replacements on the bench that are quality like them. Left wing, Haraslin should be starting. Besides that, we have the right wing and striker that might have some rotation risk, because the right wing, Schranz, has been preferred most of the times, but Mac does have a chance to get that spot in some of the games. And then striker, Polievska or Bozenic. We are thinking Polievska is gonna take that starting spot, but Bozenic does have a chance. So for Belgium, another tough goalkeeper situation. Salah is thinking 60% for Sels and 40% for Castells. I'm thinking the other way around, so it is gonna be an interesting one to see who actually is gonna start, and it is a tricky one in the end. The backline is pretty much solid, should be nailed, especially if Vertonghen is fit, he should definitely be starting. Then Castagne, Vijs and Theates should be starting as well. They do have the choice to also play with a 3-back and then Castagne to the right mid position, and they play Doku at the left mid position, for example. But if they do play like this, midfield De Bruyne, Onana and Tielemans, there might be some rotation with Tielemans and Mangala, who's coming up as a young talent. But for now, we do think Tielemans is going to start over him. Then front three, Trossard, Lukaku and Doku, most likely in this 4-3-3 formation. But they do have a lot of quality on the bench with Carrasco, Openda and Bakayoko. There are three players that are really, really good. So we could see a lot of rotation in that forward positions, but also in general, they might play 3-4-3 some of the cases to use those wingers and attackers a little bit more. For Romania, it's pretty much a solid team as well, with a lot of nailed starters. In the back line, there's one risky thing with Raciu or Sorescu, but Raciu should start over him, especially as a young talent coming up, and has been proven to be the better right back there. Midfield, two Marines there, with Cem Stanciu on the right, Man, who is pretty much one of the better players in Romania's team. Then the left wing is a tricky one, because normally Koeman is preferred, but Koeman has some issues he's working with, so Hagi might get a start here. And then at the striker position, it's either going to be Dragus or Alibek. For the first preparation, we went for Dragus, but there's definitely some debate about that striker position. Then to Ukraine, who actually have a shot of going through those group stages, because they have a decent group, and they actually have a decent team. There's not going to be much rotation in this team again. We would say Lunin has a 70% chance of starting over Trubin, especially with his experience that he got the second half of the season with Real Madrid. Then the backline should be pretty much solid. In the midfield, most likely Vanisinchenko, Stepanenko as well. Brasco might be a replacement of Stepanenko if they want to have some rotation in that section. Tsigankov, Mudryk and Dovbyk are pretty much nailed. And then you have that cam position with Sudakov, who could be replaced by Malinkovic, who definitely has the quality as well to play on that spot. Then to the last group, Group F, with Turkey. Turkey is a team that is not guaranteed at all. Like there has been so much rotation as well with the qualifiers and the friendlies. Who's gonna start as goalkeeper? No clue. It's going to be 50-50 between Günok and Shakir. Karagioglu is pretty much going to be guaranteed to play. One of the only positions with maybe Çalhanoğlu and Akturoglu. Besides that, centre-backs positions have been rotated insanely during the qualifiers. So we went for Soyuncu and Bardakci, especially Bardakci with his decent season at Galatasaray. But it could definitely be Demiral or Akadin as well. So interesting there. Left back is most likely going to be Yilmaz. But again, rotation risk definitely is there. Then in the midfield, we got Yüksek, who might be replaced by Özkan. Kökçü, who might be replaced by Arda Güler, which is interesting. I would definitely like to see him shine in some games, at least at the Euros. But Arda Güler could also be playing on the right, where Kaveci is most likely to start. And then in the striker position, Uno or Yilmaz. It's going to be a difficult one. We also have Yildiz as a forward who could replace any of these players. But for now we went for this squad. But you have to realize there is a lot of rotation risk. Then on towards a country with pretty much the most difficult names ever. But I am going to try to pronounce everything correctly. It's pretty much a nil team, so to be honest, we don't have to talk about it too much. The left wingback Shengelia and the right wingback Kagabatse are not guaranteed to start, because that's also because Arazovi, from what I've read, is not going to be there, and he was most likely going to be playing on one of those positions. And now there's two wingbacks that are being replaced by a player who's not guaranteed to start. Besides that, it's a pretty much nil team, to be honest. And there's a tiny bit of quality on the bench to replace one of the other players. Especially in the striker position, you have Mikau Tatse, but you also have what is his name? Kakabatse or Chichafili. Man, these names are so difficult. But Mika Tatse, in my opinion, should be preferred over all the other players, especially how he's doing in France as well. And besides that, we don't have to talk much about the other players because they're pretty much guaranteed to start, in our opinion. So on to Portugal, who's probably the favorite in this group as well, with the other opponents. In the back line, I mean, Ruben Dias definitely should start, but besides that, it's a little bit of risk here and there, because who's going to stand next to Ruben Dias? Could be Inacio, could be Antonio Silva, but it could also be Pepe. The fullbacks are also a little bit risky because Cancelo, Dalot and Nuno Mendes will have to fight for those fullback positions. Midfield, Bruno Fernandes, Palhinha, most likely to start. And then with that, Vitinha could definitely be starting. You have a slight risk of Ruben Neves starting, but that is really unlikely, because if there is going to be anything different with Vitinha out, Bernardo Silva is probably going to drop back with Joao Felix on the right wing. For now, Bernardo Silva is on the right wing with striker Ronaldo, left wing Leao, and then you have some other replacements that could happen, like Gonzalo Ramos for Ronaldo, or either Jota for one of those replacements in the forward positions. But I'm really curious actually if they are gonna start Ronaldo, because that's what most of the people are expecting. But last time during the World Cup, Gonzalo Ramos was preferred quite a lot of the times, so that's something which is interesting to see how that's gonna be developed on this tournament as well. Then the last team of this tournament, Czechia or Czech Republic, however you say it, which is a team with quite a few risks here and there. With the goalkeeper situation, we are thinking it's going to be Stanek, who is going to be starting over Kovar. Besides that, backline Kuval, Krejci and Holz are pretty much going to start. Holz, I'm not sure how you say that. Holz, I don't know. Then Zima is probably going to be starting over Vitic, but there is a slight chance that they rotate a little bit, or that Vitic starts over Zima. Left back position is probably going to be Dudera, but there is a risk of Jurazek starting over him. Midfield, Suchek and Sadlik are pretty much guaranteed to play. And then you have Provod, who plays a little bit more attacking, who could be replaced by a forward as well, like Kuchta for example, or Czerny. Strikers, Sheik is guaranteed to start. And then you have Locek, who should also be starting, but again could be replaced by Czerny or Kurta. So guys, that were all our predicted lineups for this Euros, and I really hope that it is going to be useful for you guys, because we have put in so much time into this, and I'm really curious what you guys think. If you have any knowledge on any country at all, please make sure to drop it in the comments, to help other people out as well, because that in the end, that's what we're trying to accomplish, to help you guys out with every single game that is out there pretty much, but in our case Sorare. And yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I want to give a big shout out to Salah, because he has put in a lot of time into this as well. And guys, we appreciate you for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe on our channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao.